Okay, so welcome everyone to this webinar. This is an introduction to the challenge that's being run in conjunction with IDSP and the Open Data Institute. My name is Tara Lee. I'm a senior consultant at the ODI, the Open Data Institute. And this is the agenda that we'll be going through today. So I will just give an introduction and an overview to what we'll be going through, to the challenge, and to the other webinars that we have going on over the next week. I'll then be passing over to Jess to talk through Wazoku, which is the platform we'll be using for this challenge. And then I'll be passing over to Sneha at R², and she'll be talking about approaches to tackling a data challenge. And we'll have 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A with the audience. And as I mentioned, this is being recorded. So if you do miss anything, if you have to drop off, we'll be sharing this afterwards as a recording. So what I'll be going through today, I'll introduce the speakers that we have with me today. I'll just talk a little bit as well around the webinars. I'll introduce you to IDSP and what that is, the scope of this particular challenge, and the challenge timeline. So as I mentioned, my name is Tara. I'm a senior consultant at the Open Data Institute. And our role as the ODI, we are co-running this challenge with the IDS partnership. And so we'll be helping with all of the practical elements of this challenge. With me today, I have Jessamy Lelliott, who's innovation consultant at Wazoku, and Sneha Ramamurthy, who's the product lead at R² Factory at Rolls-Royce, who are part of IDSP. So just a reminder, obviously, for everyone who's joined today, you know that today's webinar is happening, which is just an introduction to the challenge. We have 2 more webinars coming up if you are interested. So we'll have a couple of partners talking about the data portals that we are encouraging people to use as part of this challenge tomorrow afternoon. So that's 3 p.m. GMT. The links to that will be put in the chat by my colleague in a moment. And then next Monday, there will be another webinar from one of my colleagues at the ODI on how to use open data. So that's an hour-long introduction to using open data and guide for that as well. So just a little bit of an introduction to IDSP partners and affiliates. So IDSP is a group of private sector companies. They're committed to making private industry data more accessible so that a range of nonprofits, researchers, private companies, and governments can work together to better understand today's societal challenges, and more importantly, take decisive and informed action to solve them. So this challenge is one of the first projects launched by the IDSP and the ODI. So you can see here the partners in the first 2 rows on this screen, and then affiliate partners include GovLab and the ODI. So what is this challenge about? This is a data for local environments challenge, and its goal is to highlight the role that publicly available data can play to better understand how local government can improve local environments, for example, reaching net zero goals. There is a prize pot for the challenge. The total prize pot is $800,000. The overall winner will be awarded $50,000, with the first and second runners-up getting $30,000 and $20,000. So the challenge has been set to highlight the ways in which publicly available data can be used by local governments to improve their local environments. We want you to use publicly available data sets and data sets shared or curated by the private sector to explore how officials in cities, counties, and municipalities can more effectively use data sets to generate insights and solutions to improve their local environments, such as reaching net zero goals. And my colleague is currently posting a link to the ODI's website where you can read more of the finer details about this challenge. As I mentioned earlier, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar afterwards. However, we don't collect email addresses through Eventbrite. So if you would like to either receive the recordings of the webinars, or you would like to be informed when the challenge actually does launch, please pre-register. The link to pre-register is also on the website, or you can email us directly at idspchallenge@theodi.org. And finally, just to go through the timeline of this challenge. So we'll be opening registration officially on the 8th of February, and we'll be asking all applicants to submit a summary of their proposal by the 15th of March. So you have a few weeks between registration opening and the summary submission deadline. The idea then is for you to have a think about what you would like to deliver as part of this challenge. And you'll also have an opportunity, if you are a collection of individuals with certain skills and you are missing skills, you'll have the opportunity to reach out and do some matchmaking as well, which Jess will talk a little bit about in her section. Following the summary submission deadline, we will be talking about people who've applied for the challenge, and then you will have a further 7 weeks to submit your final submission. We'll then have an evaluation process where we'll be shortlisting candidates, and that shortlist will be announced on the 31st of May. And then we will be having jury panels with the shortlisted teams the week of the 12th of June. So that the timings for that have not yet been set because it depends on the applications we receive, time zones, expertise required, and so on. So that will be determined closer to the time. So I will finish mine now and I will pass over to Jess. So I will stop sharing.
Great, thanks, Tara. Let me just share my screen. Perfect. Okay, so just to begin with, just to give you a really brief introduction to Wazuku and the Wazuku crowd, we connect organizations seeking solutions to important challenges they face with an unrivaled network of expert problem solvers, both experts from within your industry, but more importantly, experts from outside of your industry, so they can offer more of a diverse perspective and some fresh insights. So the IDSP challenge will be hosted on the Wazuku platform. To access the challenge, I head to the IDSP challenge community where I can register for an account, or I can seamlessly log in to the environment using my solver credentials if I am already pre-registered as a solver in the Wazuku crowd. So if I sign in using this, it will direct me to the challenge center. I'm going to pop in my credentials. And that then directs me to the challenge. So when you log in, you'll be asked to accept some terms and conditions of the challenge. The agreement will grant a limited IP license to allow IDSP to include details of the submissions and communications when they're talking about the data challenge. This is just an example agreement. This will be updated when the challenge is live. So I just need to scroll all the way down to the bottom, make sure I'm reading the information, and then I click agree. So now I've agreed to the terms and conditions, I can view the content that is in the site. So as you can see here, I've got my challenge, which I can click through to read all of the information that's included in the challenge overview. Once I've read the information, and if you want to join a team to submit your application as a group, what I can do is I can go back to the home page. And then there's this section here saying want to team up, introduce yourself and connect with other applicants here. So this takes me to another challenge where we're just focusing on introducing yourself in order to meet some fellow applicants. So what you can do is you can click the applicants tab to see if anyone else has submitted an introduction of themselves. You can read through the information. They've summarized their idea, they've put down their key skills, and then they've also put some information of who they'd like to the kind of person, the kind of people that they want to join their team. So if you read through some of these ideas and you think you'd make a great addition to their team, just add a comment. Like so, and then the idea creator will be notified that they are interested in joining your team. So once you've built your team, we can head back to the challenge, just clicking through to the home page. And now I'm ready to submit my summary submission. So here we've got the Add Idea button. We need to give our summary a brief title. Oops. And now we need to enter our proposal summary. So there's a limit of 2,000 characters. And then the section below is where you can add your team members. So once you've gone from the other challenge where you've introduced yourself, you've found some people you want to connect with, you've decided and created a team, here is where you can type in their names. You can add in your team members, you can send a personalized message, they'll receive an email and accept the request to be part of your team. So when you publish your idea, it will give you the option to share it. You can continue without sharing. Just click that button and that will get rid of that messaging for you. So once you've submitted your summary submission, the deadline, I believe, is the 15th of March. So they'll go through an application check. And once it's passed through the application check phase, it will go to the final proposal stage. Once the idea is in the final proposal stage, you will be able to attach your full proposal. So if I just quickly take that idea through, just give me 1 second. Apologies for this. Technical issues always happen. Let's just go back to the challenge.
I think it's worth saying as well, Jess, that you don't necessarily need to advertise for additional team members if you have your team ready to go. It's an option if you need that functionality rather than being an absolute requirement.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there if you feel like you'd like to, meet other applicants and feel like you could build a stronger application with some additional team members. Okay, fantastic. So once I've got my idea and it's going into the proposal summary, there'll be some additional fields that you'd need to fill out in order to attach your full proposal. So you'd click into outstanding questions and then you'd be able to attach your proposal. We have a section on the idea. If I just show you the form. So on the form, you'll have this attachment section available to you so you can select your file. It does ask you to attach a solution in zip format, including an overview of the solution team methodology. There is a maximum of 3,000 words, and it needs to be supported by relevant data visualizations, modules, and insights. You will be able to ask for support questions during the challenge through the Messages tab. So I'm looking at this as an admin, but when you click the Messages tab on your user, you'll be able to submit your questions. And this question will only be between yourself and the challenge managers. So no other applicants will be able to see the questions that you submit for this challenge. So a reminder of the timelines. We start with the summary submission. You have until the 15th of March to add your summary. It will then be reviewed by the team and then it will move over into the final proposal submission. So you have 7 weeks to complete your final proposal. That is due in on the 3rd of May. You will get notifications via email, whatever email you choose to sign up with. You'll have an email just letting you know that your idea has progressed into this stage and that there are some additional fields that you need to fill out in order to complete your submission. It will then be reviewed by the team, and then there's the jury panel and the selection of winners. I believe, what's the date of that one again, Tara? Is that in June?
Yes, sorry, that's the week of the 12th of June.
The week of the 12th of June.
And that will be, so the teams that make it through to the jury panel will be a short list of teams. Not every team will progress to the jury panel. However, the initial application check is more of an administrative check rather than a shortlisting process.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is how you can locate the challenge and submit your solutions. There are places within the platform to submit your questions directly to the challenge managers, but if you do have any technical issues, we do have an email, which is support@wazuku.com, where you can send through any of your issues and we can help you and support you on the platform.
Thanks, Jess. And as a reminder, if you have any questions for any of us today, please do put those into the Q&A and we will come to those at the end of the session after Sneha has finished presenting. And on that note, I will pass over to you, Sneha.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jess, and thank you, Tara. I'm going to share my screen. I hope everybody can see it. Perfect. So what I wanted to present is because we were thinking about sharing the overall challenge statement, and we also wanted to give you one of the ways of how you can start thinking about demystifying it. This is technically not the only way, and it's no way means that it's the only sort of a solution or an approach you could take. It's just the better way of you getting hold of the challenge statement. And I hope that it kind of helps everyone who's interested to participate in this process. So the context here is if you have a human-centered approach for the overall challenge statement, it's a lot easier to demystify. So one of the proven approaches of designs is whenever you want to test out an hypothesis, always try to have a view of what the product, service, or the system it's interacting, but most importantly, have a view of establishing that initial human connect. So when we try to augment that, it becomes very simplified way of you trying to narrate the challenge and breaking down an overall challenge statement into smaller nuggets, and then you can start mapping out your research works. So that's so the overall per se of that is it's iterative. It's sort of incremental, and it's not one way for you. You can also have a lot of other ways of how you can go about the challenge statement and explore a bit more. And it's also fun and engaging for you guys to work together as a team. So why start with understanding and establishing the human connect? That's because there are different aspects of how you can look at a challenge. One is purely looking at the raw data available, looking at the research that you can do, looking at maybe doing surveys and getting the facts and observations done. But there's also a creative way of you looking at it that is a blend of trying to bring the art and psychology aspect of why does this challenge really matter to someone and how is it going to help people. So as a result of that, you have a bunch of things that you can go through. One is you can start looking at who the real users are and who do they actually benefit, and the solution or the idea that you have in mind, how can that sort of improve the efficiency of the specific users or, you know, the human connect that you're thinking about. You can also think about a bunch of products and services around it, but that is only going to stem out once you have this vague view that's kind of tested out. So we would suggest that you kind of run through your brainstorming session once you start interacting with your interested people over the platform. And so you could also do that like a cross connect of trying to have an engagement to see if you have more people who are thinking in the similar lines. And once you have that view, you can start mapping out your basic view of who the users are and then start demystifying the challenge. It's also nice to stress test your ideas a bit, but in this case, I wouldn't recommend that you have like a full-scaled MVP or something and then submit the solution to us. It would more be like you have an idea and you have thought about a well-sketched hypothesis and you've worked your basic research, you have gathered some initial data, and then you want to make a proposal to, and then you want to propose that on the platform. That's kind of the right expectation that we have. Also, it's a very easier way of you sustaining and iterating this. So in a larger context, in case you're shortlisted, you can always go back and redesign. So that's another way of looking at it. There are about 6 steps that you could do. By no means it means that these are the only 6 that you can carry forward. You could also remove some of it, or you could add more of it. So you can start by looking at the problem and understanding the problem area. In this case, it's more like the climate and the climate impact. So you can start looking within your own domains or within your own sectors, what could be the actual problem. You could use something like root cause analysis or 3 whys sort of a technique, and then you could get down to a drill down of, who the actual people are, and get some more data around that, which can be encapsulated, and it can actually make your problem statement a lot more stronger. And then the 3rd step could be try drawing some fences around your problem scope, which means that you cannot have a too broad research conducted because of the timing. So it's nice if you cap it and have your limits established. And so that even if you want to do some surveys, even if you want to get some data analysis done, it's in the purview of what's possible within that time frame. And then you can feed that back to actually evaluate your assumptions. So the data and the analysis that you do at the initial level, you can probably start capturing them. And it would be nice to take an approach of 5 whys and 2 hows, just so that you're not moving away from the reality of looking at the solutions, but you're also fencing it with the right level of data that you've gathered. Test the assumptions. You may not have the actual audience or the users to talk to, but you can conduct more focused group interviews if that helps, or talk to SMEs or the active researchers, and connect with good academic partnership people if that's possible. So the other way of these kind of challenges is you have the opportunity to network within the platform. And I think that's possible. Am I right, Tara? I think so. So you can definitely do that. And then there's a way of you can iterate your research work. So what I'm going to do is just give you an example, which is not exactly it's a challenge statement that we have, but if supposedly the challenge statement was, how can one design the applications of AI and ML models for improving the lives of people and making them much more efficient on a day-to-day basis? You could probably repeat the 6 steps, and I kind of will take you through what you can start thinking about on each of those steps. So you can start off by discovering and understanding the problem area. That is, you can probably start mapping out how to increase the use of AI. Let's start gathering the data around the percentage of people who are unable to positively adapt to the changes of the tech, and look at that data and then try to infer some analysis out of it. Now that gives you some sort of a problem scope that you can play around with, and then feed that into knowing a bit more about the human connect, which is who the audience are, and understand what part of the tech actually can make people feel more empowered. And you can do a lot of surveys at this stage to gather some different sampling data across different age groups and demographics, if that helps you to infer more. And then feed that into the fencing of the problem, which is now you have a holistic view of what the actual problem is, and then certain different human connects. You can start doing a bit more focused interviews, conduct some focused surveys to gather sampling data, and also talk to a lot of people around the platform. And you could message them, post some questions you might have, and you can infer a lot of psychological bits as well to help you understand a bit more about the data that's collected. And document your assumptions and key risks at that stage, because you will know what your idea is kind of leading to, and that will allow you to shape your further solutions that you might brainstorm as a team. And then since this is a teamwork, I would say put in a lot of efforts even to gather some good practical toolkits. A bunch of toolkits out there, which are really cool and handy. Often, most of them are open source. You can use them. I don't know if we can post the links for those open source toolkits, but if there's an opportunity, we can definitely do that to help you guys at some stage. And then you can start testing your key assumptions and then iterate. So this is something that you can use as an approach, not just for this working on this challenge statement as a team, but I think you have an opportunity to take something back for yourselves in whichever rules and whichever organizations you're working. You definitely have something that you can take back and play around with your teams as well in future. So having said that, I'll stop there. I think that kind of sets a good scene of how you can start thinking about the bigger challenge. And maybe you can go through the challenge statement on the link that's posted on the chat window, and you ask us any questions you have. I think we'll stop there now.
Thank you, Sneha. We've been extremely efficient with our time. So we're conscious we didn't want to keep anyone longer than required. Do we have any questions? If you have got any questions, please do put these into the Q&A box. I can see. Yes, can organizations team up to take part or participate as an individual? Yes, I can't see any issue with that. It's up to you. If you think as an individual you have the skills and experience that you need to participate in this challenge, that's absolutely fine. If you have it within an organization or within a couple of organizations that you want to team up, that's also fine. You would obviously need to consider how you would want to split any prize that you could potentially win. Is there a limit on team size? No, there's no limit on the team size. Can we share the presentation so you can share it with colleagues? Yes, that's fine. Just as a reminder, if you want anything shared after today, so if you want any of the presentations or if you want any of the recordings from today or the future webinars, please do pre-register to the email address that was put in the chat by my colleague Josh, because we don't have your email addresses just from joining this webinar. Okay, I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat box. I'll go through these, but if people could put any other questions in the Q&A, just so that people don't lose the links that we put in earlier. Thank you, Julia, for your comments. What can you spend the money on? I don't think there's a restriction on what you can spend the money on, frankly. So what happens is once the winners have been announced, and the prize money is awarded at the end of that, what you do with that money is up to you. We would anticipate and hope that the prize money would go towards implementing the proposal that you have, but I don't believe there is a restriction on how you can spend that money. Another question we have, is there anyone who can help us with questions regarding the challenge or data sets from the challenge? Yes, it depends on what your question is or questions are. So for example, if you are not used to working with open data sets, I recommend that you join our webinar next Monday with my colleague Lucy, who will be talking about how to use open data. If you have got follow-up questions from that, you can put those through either through the platform when the platform is live or through that IDSP challenge ODI email address, and we will follow up with those. If you need someone to do something to the data for you in terms of the analysis, that's not something that we would be able to provide. That's where you might want to add additional expertise to your team. If you have got questions regarding the challenge generally, then please put those through to that email address, and we will follow up with you. and share those. And if we think that's something relevant to everyone, we'll also add those to the FAQs on the platform when that goes live as well. The link to that event in the chat, yes. So my colleague Josh, who's sitting beside me, is going back through the chat. It is already in the chat, but he'll post that again to make that clear. So as a reminder, the webinar tomorrow is on the data portals that we're advertising. And so that's UK Power Networks and Microsoft's Planetary Computer. And then the webinar next Monday is on how to use open data. How was the IDSP formed? I don't know if Sneha, you would be able to come in on that question.
Well, I don't have an answer, but I think I can just tell you that it's formed with a good intent of actually bringing organizations together to think about the greater good. And I think that's the part that kind of connected with me and connected with all of us. But I don't know if there's a fantastic story around that. I might be curious to know. We might have something.
There is an IDSP website. So if you're interested in that, we'll put the link to the IDSP website in the chat as well, so you can find out more about that partnership as well. And Josh has already beaten me to it and put the link in the chat there. Oh, I can see the link goes to Instagram. It shouldn't do. It should go the how to use open data. It's sorted. Excellent. Fine. Okay. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, I'll just give it a minute for people who might be potentially frantically typing away. If there are no other questions, then we can finish this webinar early. As Josh has put into the chat, if you have any follow-up questions for any of the speakers today, please put those through to idspchallenge@theodi.org. If there's something that I can answer, then I will respond directly, or I will forward your question on to Jess or Sneha. Another question we have, do we need to sign up to the platform to take part? You do need to register. Jess, is there anything else that they need to know about that?
So you will need to register. We'll send through the links, Tara. We know we need to discuss in terms of comms how we're going to send out the links to potential applicants. But yeah, we'll send the link through, and then you just register for an account, and then you'll have access to the content and be able to submit your application.
Yes. So that is not the platform obviously is available, but the platform with the IDSP challenge is not yet live. But that will of course be live and ready to go prior to the 8th of February when registration is open. Okay, any last questions? Oh, long question. Our organization is currently working on a concept not in collaboration with the Open Data Charter to better understand how climate data is being used, reused, or shared among subnational government institutions in, I think that's Latin America, I think that acronym's for. Not sure this constitutes a potential concept note, since we were not planning to use actual climate data, but rather understand various dimensions of data use, reuse, that include data sets as well as data literacy, leadership, actors in a data system, etc.
Well, is your question, yeah, is your question more on whether you can use the data, open data, or is it more like you cannot reuse the data that you've already analyzed for something else within your organization? So just a catch here, be mindful of your own IP content. I think you should have a watch about your IPs, your foreground IPs. We would never recommend any of your existing products or services to be shared with any of the applicants here. or the partners. But however, you definitely have access to the open data sets and a bunch of ways you can collaborate and brainstorm together. So this is more, treat this more like your test project that you can work on separately outside what you already have explored in a similar space before.
And I think it's worth clarifying as part of this challenge that neither the ODI or IDSP or any of the partners of IDSP are taking any of the intellectual property rights from your ideas. The only thing that we will be doing is talking about your proposal and things. So we will require to be able to talk about it and publicize it and essentially spread the reach of what you're trying to achieve, and give you some good publicity as well. But that is all we will be doing with regarding intellectual property. But if you, as Sneha said, please be mindful of if you're doing something with another organization and intellectual property rights there are more complex, then you do need to bear that in mind before you could use that for another challenge. I hope that has answered your question. Okay, any final questions? Thank you, Julia. If there's nothing else, then just one final reminder, if you do want any of the content from today, please do pre-register. We don't have your email address otherwise, so we can't send you anything after that. There is a link that we put in the chat as well to the challenge landing page on the ODI website, which has more of the finer detail about the challenge, including things like what kind of participants we are expecting as part of this. And yes, otherwise, thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions. And we look forward to hearing from you in the near future and hopefully seeing some really interesting and innovative applications coming through in the next couple of months. And thank you to my other speakers, Jess and Sneha. And I wish you all a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.